Okay, so in the last video we created this very simple animation here that can be viewed in 360 or on VR devices, but we kind of are missing a few little tricks here. It doesn't look very natural. This water just looks like a blue blob because that's what it is. So we want to start actually adding in reflections of our scene. So in this video I'm going to show you the kind of easy way. However, sadly, this is a way that this is a plugin that you do have to pay for. I will put a link to where to get this in the description down below. But this is basically made by REDGIANT. But yeah, it's a good little series of plugins, but it's not free. You can trial it as under the education license, but you can't use it for anything commercial. So I have my composition here, and what I'm going to need to do is just create another new composition. I'm going to keep the width as 6080 by 3040. Now the reason I enter those two values, by the way, is these are the two values that most standard 360 all-in-one kind of cameras output as a resolution. It doesn't have to be those values. It could be half that or double that, etc. But we need to make sure that our aspect ratio is kept to 2:1. That's the most important thing. Okay, so I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm going to get my animation frame and drag it into this composition. Now, I've already installed this plugin, so sadly, like I said, this is not a free plugin, and I'm just going to type in reflect, and it's under red code VFX reflection. I'm going to drag this onto my composition that's within this composition, like so. This will take a little bit of time, and you can see already here it's already starting to try to reflect our scene. I'm going to pull these handles up till it joins. So let's just make it, again, I haven't got exact values for this. This will be very much dependent on how you've created your scene. So there we go. So now we've got a mirror reflection. So the top is being reflected down below. I'm going to increase the softness because this wouldn't be an exact. This would be a little bit distorted by the water. I'm also going to adjust the height. So I'm going to bring my height down quite a bit, just like so. There we go. There we are. So now I have my real scene and my reflection. I could adjust the brightness, I could adjust the kind of softness. I'm going to actually adjust the opacity a little bit, bring the opacity down, just so again it's not super clear. It's just like well, as you'd expect, a kind of mirror. This is perfectly still water, so we have a perfectly still reflection. I could add some sort of turbulence to this, or a bit of shaking. I'm not going to do that because this is quite a stylized animation, so it kind of works better without that. So we have our mountains and our trees reflected. And what I could do now is I could actually take this composition that I've just created and go back to my window, go to VR Comp Editor and create a 2D edit using this composition instead. And now we have our composition with reflection using the REDGIANT reflection tool. This will really hamper my computer, so I'm actually going to have to reduce the quality a little bit. So you'll see that as our kind of scene up here changes and the clouds move, you'll notice that the clouds within the reflection also move with it. Oh. I have a little bit of an error there, so something just slightly moved. Not going to worry too much about that. If that does happen, I can go back to my composition here, and normally I find that actually reflection sometimes, not always, but sometimes you have to just slightly adjust the sort of scale of it. So I'm just going to adjust the scale reflection just a tiny amount just to push it over the edges a bit. So it's not a perfect reflection, it just removes that kind of potential line that can occur. And again, this won't always happen, something's moved, something's gone a bit squiffy there. If that does happen, there are a few things I could do. I could actually just turn on the reflection only, so it only creates my reflection level. I could then go back to my animation frame here, go to my project, select my reflection and just bring this into my animation composition here. However, you see it won't let it because it's a composition within a composition trying to go back to itself. So again, I'm going to have to create another composition and drag these in. Again, you shouldn't have to do this. This depends on basically how your computer performs. So let's just see if that fixes it by creating a new one. So yeah, as you see here now, we don't have that stitch line. So sometimes it can go a little bit squiffy. If that's the case, we just recreate a new composition and repeat. So yeah, there we go. That's my very simple animation. It's nothing amazing. You can obviously, I'd encourage you to spend a lot longer on yours, making something a bit more fancy, having things going up and down, maybe having something like the water kind of edging up and down, maybe having like animals on the shoreline, having some fish swimming, maybe have a transition where we go from underwater up to this scene. Just play about, and yeah, that's basically one way of doing reflections. And I'm now going to show you a kind of more difficult way without using plugins.